to do that work and improve themselves and take advantage of all the hard work that the faculty does. And that relationship between faculty and student is precious. And one of the great reasons to come to the Honors College is that we have a small faculty-student ratio. You're not going to be taking classes in huge lecture halls of 1,000 people and then go to recitation sections with graduate students, and the graduate student is the one that reads all your work and gives you and grades your paper. And when you have to ask for a letter of recommendation, the professor doesn't know you because you're one of 1,000 students. The graduate student will write the recommendation and maybe the professor will co-sign it. That's not going to happen here. Your faculty are going to get to know you. You might take a course with a faculty member in your freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, and they'll be able to talk about how you grew and developed over time. If you write your thesis with a faculty advisor, they will be able to write about your intellectual promise and skills in writing and research, and so they'll know you and you know them. And that's going to be valuable because those recommendations can help open up the doors to get into great graduate schools or get really good jobs. But that goodwill is broken and violated. Okay, the student from Stanford who did that. I'll try not to reveal their gender just because keep them totally anonymous. But I reported my suspicions to my chair. I submitted the student's paper and I submitted a copy of the law review article. And then at Stanford, what they do is they leave it up to some committee, and I have no further role. I don't have to confront the student. That student was found guilty and was suspended for a semester. Do you think that student could ever come to me and ask for a letter of recommendation? Absolutely not. Or even take another course from me. It was really disheartening and upsetting because that precious thing of mutual trust was violated. So that's sort of, I think, a typical faculty perspective. When you cheat and you get caught, your reputation is affected. And that's what the next couple of slides are about. Okay, so this was a senator, John Walsh. It turns out that he plagiarized when he was in the Army War College, and that got exposed. And when that got exposed, he had to drop out of the campaign. So what you do in these 4 years and what you do beyond that in graduate school or in career, if you act well and ethically, you'll have a good reputation. But if you lie and cheat, you're going to get a reputation as a liar and cheater. And that's going to matter. This is a case of Ranga Diaz was a physicist at University of Rochester. He made up data saying that there could be room temperature superconductivity. And that would have been really amazing if there was, but he made up some of the data and that got exposed. And so he had published several articles in leading science journals. Those articles that he had already published were retracted. He is no longer teaching at University of Rochester. And I doubt he's going to get another position anywhere because it shows that he is not trustworthy. This is a very dramatic case. A Japanese researcher did a stem cell study. It was revealed that he made up some of the data. So his reputation was sunk because it was exposed that he cheated. Shame is a very big feature of Japanese society. He killed himself. Now, I am going to pause. And there's a few things I want to say. Life does not end if you get an F in a course or if you get caught cheating. I mean, that person who took his life, you need to step back and say, okay, there's other things. Yes, this is a terrible thing. Reputation is mattered. My reputation is shattered. But there are things there are other alternatives because life is precious. Now he's already a settled academic. For you might think that you're set on being, a lot of you are pre-med because I was at the convocation last night and half of you raised your hands when they asked how many of you are pre-med. You might think that it's the most important thing in the world for you to become a doctor. Or maybe your parents are pressuring you. There's all sorts of different reasons. And what if you get an F in organic chemistry? or you get an F in Calc 2. Those are two courses that are notoriously difficult courses that weed out people from pre-med. Okay. First of all, you can retake a course. But also what I want to say is life is not over if your ambition is to be a doctor or your ambition is to be a physicist, and you just are taking courses and you see that's not what you're meant to do. Maybe it's too challenging for you. There are other things you can do. There are other majors you can find. So don't think that there's so much pressure in getting an A in this course that your life is not worth living unless you get an A. You have to step back and have some perspective. If you do get caught cheating and you have a violation on your transcript because you violated the honor code, life does not end. Even your academic life does not end. So I'll tell you another story. There was a student maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He or she was a psychology major. He or she turned in a paper to a course that they had written the previous semester for a different course. So they tried to double dip. We're going to talk about that kind of case at length a few slides from now. But anyway, that was deemed to be a violation of the honor code. And he appealed and said, well, I wrote the paper before. Why, I'm the one that's writing the paper. I didn't have someone else write it for me. But you already got credit for that paper before. Anyway, the judicial board agreed that this was a violation of the honor code. So he had a little mark on his transcript. You can take a seminar, I think it cost $100, and then that mark will be wiped away on your official transcript. And as long as you don't have a second violation, then it won't appear on your transcript. However, in the Honors College, we keep a record that you did have a violation, even if you have it erased after taking the workshop. Okay. He or she applied to law school and got into law school, went to law school, successfully completed law school, and then applied for the bar. To practice law, you have to pass the bar exam. At the time, I was the associate dean, so I was in charge of dealing with honor code violations. I got a letter saying that this student has applied for the bar. Has this student had any honor code violation during their time here? So I checked the filing cabinets, and yes, there was this honor code violation. So I reported it. Now the thing is, they also asked the student, when they're applying for the bar, to disclose whether they had an honor code violation. Fortunately, that student disclosed to the bar that he had an honor code violation, which is a good thing because they checked with me. They always check. And if I said, yes, he did, I'm sorry, I gave it away. And he had said, no, I didn't, he would not have been licensed. But he did disclose that he had an honor code violation. And I was able to confirm he had an honor code violation, but it was a one-time offense and there was no repeat offense. He is now a practicing lawyer. So even if you have one honor code violation, it's not the end of your career ambitions, but it's crucial to not lie about that. Because if you lie about having had an honor code violation, then you will suffer the consequences. Everyone understand? Same with medical school or other graduate school programs. Okay, that's an important lesson. Number 3, before I get to the next slides. Why do you think some people cheat or plagiarize? Why would someone ask ChatGPT to write its seminar paper for it and turn that paper in? Okay, let's start with your first answer. They're stressed. Yes, you are going to be stressed. I was stressed when I was an undergraduate. There are going to be times when you are stressed, when you have everything due for all 4 or 5 of your classes on the same day. So how do you deal with that? The way to deal with that is not to cheat, because there are long-term consequences to that. So another great thing about the Honors College is that we have faculty who really care about you. They chose to come to the Honors College as opposed to a university where they're going to be teaching graduate students as well as undergraduates, because they like working with undergraduates. They like mentoring you. And so if you're ever in a situation where you feel stressed and almost tempted to take a shortcut like cheating, don't do that, but speak with your faculty. Speak with the instructor. Speak with your academic advisor. you can go to the dean suite and speak with the associate dean, Dr. Vasquez. You met him last night. There's lots of resources at the Honors College. You can speak to your RA. You can, resident assistant, right? There's many resources, but don't get, if you're stressed, we will help you with that stress, but don't take shortcuts around it. That's not the best way to deal with it. And we definitely will be willing. Most faculty are willing to be very, very reasonable and accommodating. And if one faculty seems unaccommodating, then you can always go to the associate dean. Okay? Last point. Some of you might think, of course I'm not going to take shortcuts and cheat in organic chemistry because I'm a pre-med, and that course is really important for me to be a successful doctor. But they're making me take Shakespeare for the core. And I don't really need Shakespeare to be a good doctor. So maybe it's okay for me to take a shortcut in the Shakespeare class. What do you think of that? Yeah, cheating, taking shortcuts, my term for cheating, is definitely always wrong. And the fact that, oh, you don't think this course is important, that doesn't justify it. Right. These other classes are going to help you to think clearly and critically and write and communicate effectively. These are tools that you need for just about any kind of job. Hopefully they'll teach you how to think ethically as well. Yeah. Bingo. So I was really good in math in high school. I was president of my Mu Alpha Theta Club, the math club. So you guys kind of know. And so I went to college. I thought I would either be in my sophomore year, I took a political theory course, the Introduction to Political Theory course. And I had always been interested in politics and issues. I debated in high school, so I was interested in social issues. And when I took this course, I was amazed and put in awe. I mean, I loved it. I loved the topic. I loved the issues of dealing with justice and why do we have a state and what limits should be set on individual freedom and all sorts of things. I just ate it up, and I had a true passion for this. So I became a political theorist, and that's what I teach. I'm teaching an intro to political theory course this fall semester. I didn't even know what political theory was in my freshman year of college. So one reason we have a core requirement is not to just like make you jump through hurdles, but to say, well, maybe you have an idea. You want to be a doctor because you saw this TV show that you thought was great, or whatever your reasons were. But you haven't yet been exposed to, say, economics or anthropology or history or psychology. And maybe upon being exposed to something, you will find that you have a passion for it. And I think personally that it's very important that you do something in your life that you're passionate about and love, and not just pick something because it makes money. Because you're more likely to be successful at something. So be open to all of these other courses. Take courses that are outside your comfort zone. But the point is, for the honor code, is when you take these courses that don't count towards your GPA for your major in medical school, don't give them any less respect. Still learn as much as you can out of these courses, because you never know that course might change your life. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, part of the honor code knowledge and expectation to report violations of this code. And that doing so, while not obligatory, is not to be looked down on as betraying trust, but rather is to be regarded as maintaining the academic integrity of the Honors College and supporting a community of mutual trust. If you see your friend cheat on a final exam, you see them like, look use their phone and they're not allowed to use their phone. Would you report it? Well, according to this, do you have an obligation? Is failure to report it itself a violation of the honor code? You're saying yes? You. Yeah, you. You were shaking your head no. Oh, is it a violation of the honor code not to report? Should it be a violation of the honor code if you are aware that someone else is cheating and you don't report it? Should it be a violation? How many of you think it should? How many of you think it should not? Okay, why not? Why do those who think it should not be a requirement think it should not? Come on, someone who hasn't spoken yet? Yeah. Louder, louder, shout. So you would talk to your friend and try to convince them to fess up, but you wouldn't yourself report it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Definitely talk with them and try to help them. But yeah, go ahead. Uh, or at least they'd have to explain themselves. Okay, so that's a really good point. If we did make it, now some places like West Point do make it a violation of the honor code if you are aware of a violation and fail to report it. But we do not. That's one of the things the students decided back in 1999. And one reason might be it's difficult to prove that someone was aware of something. But another reason is, this gets into moral philosophy, but there are competing obligations. Does everyone agree there is an obligation to report a violation, but maybe that obligation can be outweighed by competing obligations? What's a competing obligation that would, yeah. Good, obligations of friendship. Now do you think, are you really helping your friend by not reporting them? I mean, you can make the case that they are better off in the long run, but that might be a hard, yeah. Mhm. Okay, good, yeah. But you have an obligation, don't you have an obligation to support the ethical integrity of the entire community campus? Huh, okay. So are you saying that for some people it might have been justified to cheat? Context does matter when we're judging people. Okay, that's good, but the language is clear. It's not obligatory, but there's an expectation to report, and having this and reporting is not to be looked down upon as if, oh, you're a rat. No, in reporting, you're making everyone in the community better off. You're maintaining a system of mutual trust so the faculty don't have to question whether every student used ChatGPT in turning in their paper. If one student gets away with it, then it upsets the whole community of trust, and that's going to affect every student and the relationship to the faculty. That's what that one cheater has done. It's made it difficult for everyone to appreciate that. So do you see how everyone has an interest in making sure that cheating doesn't happen? Okay. What counts as plagiarism? Do you want to add anything to what we just...
For example, what if your test was graded on a curve and now your friend scored a higher score than you because they cheated, and now you don't get that extra curve because they have a higher score? Like, what do you think about that? Would you report them still, or would you still not report them?
I actually want to add on to that because last year, not in my section of cell biology, but in another section of cell biology, I did hear rumors about another student cheating. And I know people in that class that work very, very hard, and those tests were graded on a curve. And I do know that the one student was getting an unfair advantage, so I did report it to the professor. And I don't know if that student still goes here or not. I don't know if anything happened because of it, but that is why I do believe that there's an obligation to report.
Go ahead. Okay, and even if they didn't intend to harm other people, that's what they're doing. Okay, let's go to another part of this presentation that's very important. What counts as plagiarism? Turning in someone else's work, which also includes large language models, because they are not people yet, but they are not you, and if they do something and you turn in what they did to your professor and passed it off as yours, you've stolen their work or its work. It's not your work. So that's plagiarism. You turn in something that's not your own. But there's also cutting and pasting someone else's work, including AI, without quotation marks and without giving them credit. Okay. If you find a well-worded paragraph that maybe ChatGPT or you found on the internet, and you cut and paste that well-worded paragraph into your paper without quote marks and without acknowledging that you are not the one that wrote that paragraph, you've stolen. It takes a lot of intellectual work to come up with a good paragraph. I've spent hours sometimes trying to get a paragraph just right because there's thousands of choices of words that you can use for a particular sentence to convey a concept. And it takes intellectual effort to think about what is the right word to do. That's work that you've done. Now, when you let someone else or AI do that work for you, that's their work, and you're taking credit for it. So if you're allowed to use AI, a faculty member will tell you, you still have to give it credit. So you put what it constructed in quote marks, and then you have a footnote saying, giving credit to the author or to the large language model that you use. And then that's fine. No one can accuse you of cheating, because cheating or plagiarism is taking credit for someone else's work. But if you give them credit, you haven't plagiarized. So it's very easy not to plagiarize. You just have to give credit where it's due. Everyone understand that? Even paraphrasing the ideas of others without giving them credit would be counting as plagiarizing. And this is connected with the next point. I like to give this example. I took a seminar on Charles Dickens when I was an undergraduate. Dickens, he has novels that are either 1,000 pages or 500 pages. So we read 3 1,000-page novels and 2 500-page novels. So it's a lot of work. There was one discussion where we were reading Bleak House, one of his 1,000-page novels. And one of the students in the class discussion noted how Dickens used birds symbolically in many significant ways that are important to understanding an important point. And I said, wow, I haven't even noticed that he has birds. Okay, so what if I wrote my paper, and my paper spent a lot of time on Dickens' use of birds in Bleak House, and I passed it off as my own, even though it was some other student in the seminar that had come up with that idea? Is that plagiarism? How do I avoid it? Well, there's even a simpler way to avoid plagiarism. Give him credit. Thank you to Joe or Samantha for her observations in class about birds from which I draw on. And then you have not stolen. You have not acted unethically. And you are not going to be in the position of having your faculty wonder whether they can trust you. Or you can ask them after. We only have like 20 students, 24 students in a class, so you can get to know them. So do that, yeah. Get to know the names of your other students. But yeah, as long as you indicate, acknowledge that it was not yours, it was someone else. Okay, that's what I just said. Okay, what about the use of AI? We could spend an hour on this, and I teach a whole course on AI ethics, and there's a team taught course on the use of AI. So we don't have time to go into that, even though it's really, really interesting. But on the syllabus, each professor has a prerogative to set their own terms for whether AI use is permitted. So find out. In many cases, students are not, well, actually, here's the rule. Students are not permitted to use AI in working on a graded assignment for a class. That includes papers, lab reports, quizzes, exams, problem sets, unless explicitly permitted to do so by the instructor of that class. So we do not ban the use of AI. An instructor may want you to use AI for an assignment, in which case they will make it clear that you can use AI. So find out from your instructor beforehand, or make sure you're clear beforehand before you start using AI for anything. Okay? And again, if you do use AI, acknowledge that you did. So you're giving credit where credit is due. Okay. Let's turn to an example of a problem that we can think about. We used to have ethics bowls, and maybe we'll have ethics bowls in the future if some of you are interested in resurrecting those. And this was one of the questions for the ethics bowl. Last fall, Ed Shortcuts wrote a 10-page paper on the German philosopher Hegel in Professor Smith's philosophy class, and Ed got an A for that paper last semester. The next following semester, he took a history course from a visiting instructor, Professor Jones, and one of the assignments was a 10-page paper on a major philosopher of history. That Hegel was a philosopher of history, among other things. Ed was overwhelmed with all his other courses, and he decided to turn in the paper he had written on Hegel the prior semester for this new course. And he gave no indication that the paper had been used previously. Everyone understand what Ed did? Okay. Professor Jones was about to give Ed's paper an A, but then happened to mention it to Professor Smith. Professor Smith was curious and asked to see the paper. She immediately saw that it was the same paper Ed had written for her course the prior semester, and she told Professor Jones. Professor Jones then gave Ed an F and accused him of violating the honor code. And Ed claims, I didn't steal other people's work. This is just my own work. I wrote it. I just also wrote it for a previous class. Did Ed violate the honor code? Other people who haven't already spoken, what do you think? Yeah. Loud, really loud. Okay, well, we don't know if he would have been allowed if he asked beforehand. Good. Okay. Okay, yeah, go ahead. If you were a professor, would you be okay with a student turning in a paper for your course that they had already written and got credit for the previous semester? Who would be okay with that? Can anyone explain why you think that's okay? Go ahead. Loud. Okay, so you're not fully okay with it. They'd have to make revisions. Is anyone fully okay with it? Okay. So if a student said, you know, I have a lot of work in my other courses, is it okay if you just give me an A for a paper and I don't write it? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so what does anyone want to? Does anyone disagree with what you just said? That it's okay to do it because you already wrote it. It's a good paper. How would you respond to that? Okay, so it's sort of it wasn't fair to all the other students. Okay, yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this. Why is it okay to double dip? Why is it okay? You already got an A, 3 credits worth of an A for the paper you wrote last semester. Why is it okay for you to get another 3 credits of A for doing nothing? Just so you know, if you're a professor and you publish a paper with the one journal, and then you send that same paper to another journal and ask them to publish it, you will be probably fired. Okay? Hmm. All the way at the back. Why can't you get double credit for it? Go ahead. Two more comments, people who haven't spoken yet, and then I'm going to move on because we're running out of time. All the way, yeah. Okay. Another thing, think of it this way. Each course you take is going to increase the number of brain cells and activity in your brain. I mean, and you're going to come out at the end as a better, smarter, better critically thinking, better articulate, more articulate person. And you've deprived yourself of that opportunity to exercise your brain cells by taking that shortcut. Plus, there's issues of fairness and other things. You would go ahead, and then I want to. It's a really interesting question philosophically. We could spend more time on it. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree with the claim that what Ed did was wrong and unethical, because some of you are disagreeing, and I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm not persuaded at all by that. But in any case, this is a statute guiding academic codes of conduct for FAU, Statute 4001. And if you look at the part that's highlighted, it says, under other forms of dishonesty, submitting the same paper or assignment or part thereof in more than one class without the written consent of both instructions. By statute, we've determined that that's wrong, even if you yourself disagree with the ethical arguments. Okay? So don't do it. Ask the professor beforehand if it's okay, and then you're okay. If they say it's okay, then as long as you don't mind that you're not going to be increasing your brain cells and improving yourself, if that's what you want to do, and the instructor is okay with it, then it's okay. And this leads us to the guiding principles of plagiarism. Don't steal. Do not give credit for someone else's work, or even your former self's work that you did the previous semester, by acknowledging that this is something that was written by me a semester ago. And if the professor says that's unacceptable, you have to rewrite a paper, then you do that. Otherwise, you violated. Ed did not ask the new professor if this is okay. He was probably afraid that she'd say no. Okay, and that should indicate to you that this wasn't entirely ethical. Be upfront, and then you have no claims that, that someone could challenge your integrity. Give credit not just for ideas, but for forms of expression. And this is crucial, most important point of the whole presentation. If you are uncertain whether something is plagiarism or cheating, ask the professor beforehand. That way you're on safe ground, that you don't do something that the professor will then later accuse you as being unethical. And then if that happens, you're violating that precious trust between you and the professor. That is the whole reason you're coming to the Honors College, is to work with these faculty. They can open doors for you in the future and train you. So ask beforehand. Everyone understand that? If you're not sure. If you're not sure about whether you can use Grammarly Go, does that count as using AI? Ask the professor beforehand. And do whatever the professor says. And professors might have different policies in each class, so you just deal with that. There's other forms of cheating, like looking on someone else's exam, getting unpermitted prior knowledge of an exam question or a paper topic by finding someone who took the course the previous year and saying, do you have a copy of the exam? That would be cheating. Working together on projects where you are not allowed to work together. Unpermitted use of AI. Okay, quickly, we have just 3 minutes, so I'm going to go over the process. There's 2 processes for being tagged as violating the honor code. One, the instructor suspects that you cheated. They will call you in for a conference. This is all spelled out in the statutes. And if after that conference they still think that you cheated and you disagree, then there will be a further conference with the instructor, you, the student, and someone that the dean designates, some professor. If at the end of that conference they still think you cheated and you think you did not cheat, then you can appeal a second time to go before the judicial board, where you will make your case before the students on the board and a professor. If they think you cheated and you still think you didn't cheat, you can appeal to the provost, who is the highest academic officer at the university. Good luck with that. I don't think there's too many cases where the provost overwrites all these previous, but it's possible. Another way that cheating can be detected is if you know that someone else has cheated, you can go either to the faculty instructor and let them know, and maybe even in confidence, or you can go to a member of the judicial board. Their names and their emails are on the website. And you can say, we think that so-and-so cheated. And you give them the details, and they'll work with me, and we'll investigate. So those are 2 different ways that we can try to identify cheating. We only have 2 members for this year's board right here, so there's space for maybe 3 more. So check your emails, and if you're interested in serving on the judicial board, then do the instructions by the deadline. Penalties for violating the honor code. If it's your first offense, you can take a workshop at Boca for, I think, $100. And then if there's no future offense, it will be wiped from your transcript. You could get an F in the work. You could get an F in the course. You could be suspended. You could lose your scholarship. You could be dismissed, especially if it's a second offense. But also, it's the loss of your reputation. Thank you. And thank you to Brent and Maria.
Hi everybody, hey y'all, how we feeling? Okay, I'm gonna dismiss you guys by groups. So if you are groups 1 through 4, please stand up and make your way and find your peer mentor out the door. You guys will be heading to bus check-in and SR ATM, okay? 1 through 4, go ahead and find your peer mentors. That also includes groups 5 through 8. You guys can go find your peer mentors as well. If you're not group 1 through 8, please stay seated for a moment. Thank you. you. Appreciate it. How was it? All right, 1 through 8 should be out of the auditorium. 1 through 8. Okay, you guys are heading to bus check-in. Okay? Now, the rest of y'all can go ahead and head over to the dining hall for lunch with faculty. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Not a problem. Yeah, absolutely. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. 9 through 14, lunch with faculty.